Yesterday, after John got off with us, we had talked about Timmy Jernigan, and then the Eagles made the decision, John, that they did not exercise the contract on Jernigan's $11 million. So no more kicking the can down the road for him. It appears that Jernigan will not be back with the Eagles this season.
No, he won't. And if you remember, Mike, what we said is there was no way they were going to pick up his option. So the only question was, were they going to work out a restructure at a much lower level? And I kind of said that had to depend with the health issues. Obviously, they're very concerning, herniated disc, cervical fusion surgery. So $13 million, you mentioned the $11 million salary, but it was a $13 million cap number. So Eagles couldn't do that. Only question was, did they think he could be viable moving forward? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But, you know, if you remember Howie Roseman, when he spoke after the season, he called this draft and the defensive line talent in this draft historic. And judging by what happened in the scouting combine, he's right. So I think more and more it looks like at number 25 overall, the most likely scenario for the Eagles is defensive line and probably defensive tackle.
Yeah, and Jernigan, I think I read in your article, John, it'll save them $7 million in cap space, but they'll have $6 million in dead money. So for the listeners out there, kind of explain what that means.
Well, yeah, you do take a hit when you move on from contracts. Remember, the Eagles were able to restructure it so it was much more favorable. If you go back to 2017 and remember how well he fit in, how well he was playing early in the season, the Eagles worked out a monster extension. It was 4 years, $48 million. They thought he was going to be part of this defense for a long time. He was going to be a cornerstone of this defense. Then you have the off-field injury, and they were able to guarantee him some money so he could rehab and essentially rework the deal so it turned in to 3 option years. But you got to take a little hit, and that's sort of what you weigh in these types of instances. You want to take the big hit of $13 million or the littler hit.
This is where these are the moments where you kind of feel bad for the players. Like it feels a little dirty, a little greasy, where you do this deal and then they say, give us a couple of options. First time we get the option, sorry, you're out, all because you were hurt.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we kind of talked about Kyler Murray a little bit and choosing between baseball and football. And I advocated, hey, if you're a high-level prospect in both, it's nuts to pick football. It really is. I mean, there's other ways if you love the game, if it's your dream. But if you want security, baseball's the way to go. The minute Bryce Harper signed that deal with the Phillies, he's guaranteed every single cent of that money.
Yeah. The hard part with baseball is you got to go through the system, and it's not a guarantee that you're going to get to the point where you're Bryce Harper.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. But if you're
at football, you're getting that money.
Your ability.
You're getting if you're Murray and someone's instructing him that you're going to be a first-round pick, he's going to get a lump sum of money right away.
Sure, and you know that's why I said you have to have confidence in your ability. You also have to wait a little bit longer because it takes longer to get to free agency in baseball now. And the guy I used as an example, much more than Murray, is Jeff Samardzija. Different position, would have been a wide receiver in the NFL, but would have been a first-round pick. Had confidence in his baseball abilities as a pitcher, made it to the major leagues. He's been in the major leagues a long time, but a really, really mediocre pitcher, let's be honest. And I checked his numbers. He's already made $89 million.
Wow.
And he's got $40 more million on top of that to go on his current deal. So, if the choice is there and you're a high-level prospect, generally it's a security is much better in baseball, as long as you make the major leagues, and that's not a given.
No, just slightly better. And, John, going off the combine stuff, the combine really interests me. You know, I think it's very overrated and also extremely useful. So with the Eagles having later picks in the first round the past couple years. What's their what's Doug's and Howie's strategy assessing players in the combine? Because we all know kind of how Bill Belichick and the Patriots operate, and every team looks at players and drills and assesses things differently. So how are they assessing players to get maybe a diamond in the rough?
Well, I mean, as far as what traits they look for, you kind of look at the history of this organization and realize how they do certain things, and you kind of tabulate that in your mind. Everybody uses the cliche of best player available, but the Eagles are like everybody else. It's not really best player available. It's best player available at a need position. And if you saw what they did at this combine, they looked at every single running back that was there, seemingly. So they obviously know they want to improve that position. I just mentioned the way Howie gushed about the defensive line and the way those guys performed in Indianapolis. They're really, really interested in that particular position, and it's deep. And then you look at safety. They're looking for a third safety. So they're like everybody else. They target their needs. They kind of understand what they need. You can't get everything you need or you want every year. And that's how everybody, not just the Eagles, go about it.
Speaking of running back, there was a report out there that Duke Johnson is a guy they could have some interest in, and it makes sense, obviously. He's on a team where I don't know how much usage he's going to get, but would he be a guy that would be an upgrade?
Yeah, I do, but I think there's levels of upgrade, and I've talked about it a lot. I think the ultimate goal for the Eagles is to get a 3-down back, get a Le'Veon Bell type. I don't think they're going to get him, but that type of player who doesn't have to sit unless you want him to sit, unless you want to give him a breather, so to speak. And if they get that type of player, well, they're not looking for a Duke Johnson type, but as part of the committee approach, he's a good receiver out of the backfield. But a lot of rumors this type of year, let's be honest, they're based on speculation. And the Browns, you mentioned it, Mike. I mean, people look at Nick Chubb and they sign Kareem Hunt and say, well, they have no use for Duke Johnson, so he's available. Who needs a running back? Eagles need a running back. They put 2 plus 2 together, and all of a sudden you have a rumor. But remember, Kareem Hunt's going to be suspended. The Browns have no idea when he's going to be available to them. So I'm not so sure they're going to be, running to the finish line to get rid of Duke Johnson until they figure out when they're going to get Kareem Hunt. So that's part of it as well.
What do you think the biggest need is for this team between D tackle, running back, corner, safety, and what do you anticipate them doing compared to draft versus, free agency or trade? If you had to predict like a plan that they have in place for that.
Well, I think the draft is wholly contingent, as it always is, on what you get done in free agency. Obviously, if you get Le'Veon Bell, which, again, I don't want to get people excited. I don't think they are. But if you get him, well, then you're not looking at running back. It's common sense. I do think they know there's going to be a good player on the defensive line available. And that's just how deep it is. And mention that word again, historic, according to Howie Roseman. So more than that, I think it's most logical for that reason. They're going to go with the defensive line in the first round. And then the second part is running back. Josh Jacobs isn't there. There's nobody else worthy of a first-round pick. So it's not a great year for running backs. So you put those two things together, and it's looking more and more likely like it's going to be defensive line for the Eagles in the first round.
Yeah, they picked number 25, John McMullen, at JF McMullen. He's fighting with people on Twitter right now. Lane Johnson.
As he's talking on the air?
No, not this minute, but at any time he could fight back.
Well, we already know that John might allegedly struggles with multitasking. with answering a
Dropping
question
the phone.
and holding the phone at the same time. So now I'm just blown away at his ability to answer a question and fire off a tweet.
John and I were fighting together the other week. It was like a tag team match.
We do have that audio of John. I don't believe there was a phone
John
drop
allegedly dropping the phone.
there. No,
Yeah.
no phone drop.
I didn't drop the phone. But no, today it was interesting because I actually complimented somebody, and they got angry at me for it. And they've been berating me all day. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever. Now
You
I get
make
yelled
people
at.
angry. There's something
I know,
about you.
Something about your
get
face.
Yelled at. I get yelled at a lot on Twitter, but it's usually because I insult people. I own that. It's very, very weird to compliment somebody, and they think you're being condescending, and they badger you all day. It's just very weird.
Well, your
here's the thing.
reputation precedes yourself.
Exactly. When you badger and insult enough people on Twitter, it's just
this is not a random person. This is a person. this is a person I know. So it's very, very weird.
Gotcha. Well, I want to get into real quick your Lane Johnson restructured here, undisclosed portion of the $10.8 million, converted to a bonus. How does this help the team? What is the thinking behind what Howie Roseman's trying? We know he's trying to find any guy in the locker room that wants. If you get that call from Howie right now, you know it's not. It's a lot of times it's, hey, can you help me out here?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, this team has had issues now for a number of years with salary cap and how they're up against it, and there's constant restructures, and there will continue to be. And Lane had the biggest number of anybody on paper as far as his cap number heading to 2019. So he was a logical candidate to restructure. It works on both sides. He basically gets all his money up front, and the Eagles are able to translate that into a bonus that you can spread out over the entire length of his contract. So this is the trick he's been doing for a lot of years, and it will continue.
Yeah, this is, and you always mention kicking the can down the road. I mean, Lane Johnson, Jernigan, they try to, I mean, it seems that they're always trying to compromise the cap to make a move on someone. Ryan asked you about the possibility of things, you know. Is there a way that you could see them to manipulate the cap enough to be a player, as we talked about yesterday, for Bell? Because you said yesterday, Bell's not going to come here for a friendly deal. He's going to try to get the most money. It seems that the Eagles would not be in play to be able to give him the most money.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think it's realistic. I mean, you look at teams like the Jets, who are the favorite in most circles around the NFL for landing Le'Veon Bell. There's a reason for that. They have a ton of cap room. They have the ability to give him everything he could possibly want and give him the biggest contract, the biggest running back contract, and significantly beat Todd Gurley's deal. I don't know if the Eagles can do that. And they can't do it unless they do a lot of juggling. So it's just a lot easier for a team that has that space. They don't have to have all these moving parts to get something done by that. And you alleviate some of that normally by players like Brandon Graham taking a little bit less than they would have gotten on the open market. But as I pointed out, Le'Veon Bell didn't sit out to take a little bit less.
Yes, that is true. We were discussing that before he came on. What about the I want to get into a couple of NFL pieces here. Safety market. Landon Collins released. A lot of Giant fans not happy. Eagles in the market for safety help?
Yes and no. I think they'd like to improve their third safety position, which was Corey Graham, and Corey's probably going to retire and not be back. Trey Sullivan, a young player, improved a bit, but I don't know if you can count on him. But they reworked Rodney McLeod's deal, so he'll be back. He's a starter with Malcolm Jenkins. They're not looking for a Landon Collins, Earl Thomas type who's going to come in and start. So they would like some help, but it's not going to be a big-name safety like that.
Also, I'm very this whole Josh Rosen thing is pretty interesting to me. You know, Steve Keim, their GM, drafts this guy, And now all of a sudden, he hires a coach. He fires the coach, and now he's ready to replace the quarterback already. Like, isn't this somewhat of an indictment on the GM?
I tweeted about this today. It's unspeakably bad, is what I said. I mean, think about this. Think about what Steve Keim did. He hired a coach. He drafted a quarterback with the 10th overall pick. Then he blew the coach out, one and done, brings in another coach who's in love with a different quarterback and wants that quarterback at number 1 overall. And then you got to trade the guy who was the 10th pick in the draft. And, oh, by the way, has a ton of talent. He's got a chance to be a really good quarterback in this league. You're certainly not going to get a first-round pick. People are talking about a third-round pick. That's the definition of buying high and selling low. This guy should be fired today. And I don't ever advocate people losing their jobs because there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of people are affected. I don't like doing it. That is, I can't even think of another GM that would do that, survive that. It's egregious on so many levels.
Yeah, it sounds like that he hires this new coach who has essentially talked him into saying, your choice was bad. Let me make my own choice. Yeah.
And, I mean, you have to have some confidence in your ability to say, I drafted this kid. And oh, by the way, he traded to go up and get Josh Rosen. He traded a 3rd and a 5th round pick to go up and get him on top of it. So he does that 1 year. And part of it is ownership related because he's trying to save his skin and trying to sell to the owner, well, maybe I made a mistake, but we're going to get it right this time. Look, that's just a terrible organization making terrible decisions and doubling down. And I didn't look. I did not like the hiring of Cliff Kingsbury, who was basically a mediocre coach at the college level. And to assume that he's another Sean McVay light type. I think he had coffee with him one week, and he became a head coach.
He wears Ray-Bans.
Yeah, he's got nice facial hair.
Legit Ray-Bans, though.
Yeah.
No knockoff.
Like the in ones.
He knows the same baristas, so he's got some connection to Sean McVay. And look, it's not going to work. And it's not an indictment of Kyler Murray. People have questions about him because of his size. I think he's a legitimate prospect, but you don't take a quarterback number 1 overall the year after you take a quarterback number 10 overall. And that poor guy had no offensive line. Again, you blow out his head coach after 1 year. What opportunity did Josh Rosen have?
None. Rotoworld, part of NBC, does their NFL coach rankings. They just came out with their list.
I want credit for this.
Okay.
I thought you can't get on Rotoworld.
I tweeted about that too.
I can get on the site, Rotoworld. The new website stinks. They need to go back to the old one. That being said, you agree with me on that one, John. Their new website stinks. But
I don't use their website that much, so I'm not familiar with it.
Their old one was excellent. It was so clean. It was very user-friendly. This one, too many bells, whistles. They're trying too hard. Go back to the old one, Rotoworld. Tweet at Rotoworld and tell them your website stinks. Go back to the old one. Do me that favor, please. I do it almost every single day. I feel like that guy. I feel like
every day
you're going to waste a favor on that. How about having?
No, I want the old.
You?
I want the old Rotoworld back. I feel like Andy Dufresne writing a letter to the warden to get me a library. Bill Belichick, number 1.
It's a good reference by you.
Who's number 2? Eitan Shander. Who's number 2?
Coach in the NFL?
Yep.
Right now?
Who they rank number 2?
I would say Sean Payton.
Did you see the list?
No.
Your guess is?
For number 2?
Yes.
John
McMullen says it's easy.
Andy Reid.
John McMullen?
Correct. Andy Reid.
Number 2. Andy Reid, second best coach in the NFL. Number 3, Sean McVay. Number 4, Doug Peterson. And number 5, Pete Carroll. John, we talk about it all the time. Number 1 is Belichick.
Peyton's not in there at all?
Who?
Peyton's not in there at all?
Peyton was number 6. So we talk about it all the time. Belichick's number 1. Who's number 2? And everybody can come up with a different answer, but Andy Reid, there he is.
Yeah, I agree with Andy being number 2. I would rate it would for me. It would be Belichick, Andy. Doug would be third ahead of Sean McVay. You're one of the few people that can confirm this from year one, and this is what I tweeted. All these people yelling at me on Twitter. We go back to Twitter.
This is like your crusade of Peterson is like mine of telling people that the Celtics were not going to be as good as everybody thought.
Exactly. Except Doug is proven. But number one, this guy is one of the best coaches in football. It's amazing how quickly he has gotten to that position when you think about Mike Lombardi and all the jokes when they first hired him. I thought it was evident early on how he handled Sam Bradford, that mess, just the way he handled the locker room. He was going to be a good coach. And nobody gives me credit for that. I want credit for that. I admit it.
You get credit.
Well, I know you know.
Yeah. Well, and I said at that time, I didn't to me, I wasn't like in love with Peterson. Didn't hate Peterson. I didn't think it was awful. I didn't think it was great because that coaching year there wasn't a standout hire to me. Like there wasn't someone that I really like the year Chip Kelly got hired.
If you remember, and this is a disaster. The Eagles wanted Adam Gase. They offered him the job. He wanted control over the 53-man roster. They wouldn't give it to him. He went to Miami. Then they wanted Ben McAdoo. He was on, the legend goes, he was driving down the Jersey Turnpike when the Giants got him, made him turn around.
That's right.
Molly Pitcher service area, got him back. Imagine, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. They wanted Adam Gase and Ben McAdoo.
Yeah, the year that Kelly got hired, I liked Bill O'Brien. That was the guy I was really pushing for.
Well, it would have been better than Chip Kelly.
That's right.
In hindsight, no question about that.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, more with John on the NFL tomorrow. The Eagles continuing to making off-season moves to restructure deals and move stuff around leading up to March 11th, which is going to be here. Oh my gosh, it's March 5th already. NFL free agency next, Friday is that? The 11th? What is that?
13th?
March 13th.
March 13th, that'll be next Wednesday. Next Wednesday.
Crazy.
A week from tomorrow, NFL free agency. John McMullen, you're the best.
All right, thank you, guys.